Hi, my name is Brad King. I'm with George-Palilonis, and we are the directors for the Center for Emerging Media Design and Development. Joining us tonight are three of our students, Bree Eichenberry, Sean May, and Sarah Jansen, who will a little bit later be talking about some of the projects that we do in the center. But for tonight, what we're going to do right now is give you an overview of the program. We're going to talk a little bit about the application process. Then we'll go to our students and talk about what you'll be doing when you come here. And then we'll answer some of your questions. And please remember, while we're going through all this, you can send your questions at any time during our presentation.
EMDD is an interdisciplinary master's degree program that attracts students with a wide range of undergraduate degrees, including creative writing, graphic design, and computer science, to name a few. In the first year of the program, students take 6 classes focused on design thinking, human-computer interaction, cross-platform storytelling, and usability and user experience research methods. These courses are also project-based and give students an opportunity to work in interdisciplinary teams to practice the storytelling skills, research methods, and design thinking processes that serve as the foundation for the EMDD degree. We've designed a relatively unique experience for the second year of the program. Instead of taking more traditional courses, students earn 18 credit hours working in the Creative Projects Development Lab and then the Applied Research Lab. In the labs, students work with our community partners to solve real-world problems. For example, we currently have a team working with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, developing live and digital experiences intended to attract younger audiences to the classical music series. We also have a team working with Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, to develop multimedia teaching and learning tools that foster digital literacy skills for young people.
So if you're interested in coming to the Center for Emerging Media, there's a couple steps. First, you have to apply to the graduate school. So you need a 2.75 GPA. That's the minimum requirements for what needs to happen there. To apply to the Department of Journalism, you need to have a 3.0. Now, you don't have to take the GRE. All we ask is that you send us a current CV or resume, a 1,000-word statement of purpose, and a 2,500 to 5,000-word academic or professional writing sample, and some design or creative portfolio. The design or creative portfolio is your way to tell us what it is that you do and how you do it. When we put together our cohort, we try to get people who come from a variety of disciplines. Now, if you're an international student, it's a little bit different. You have to go to the Rinker Center, and what you're going to do is apply through there, and there's 2 tests that you may have to take, either the TOEFL or the IELTS. The graduate school does charge an admission fee when you apply, but because you're in this webinar tonight, you'll receive instructions afterward for a 50% waiver off the application fee.
Many EMDD students hold graduate assistantships across campus. These require students to work 20 hours a week in exchange for a partial tuition waiver and a monthly stipend. EMDD students are often in high demand across campus because of their diverse skill sets.
Now, what we're going to show you is a video that was put together in the first semester of the program. It's called Make Me, and it's a project that was done in our transmedia storytelling class, and it'll give you an idea of the kind of thing that you'll be learning in the first semester while we're here.
Make Me was a transmedia experience staged over 4 days in Muncie and Indianapolis, Indiana. It consisted of a physical element in the form of an interactive installation and a digital element in the form of a website. The goal of Make Me was to call attention to binary gender roles and the effects it can have on a person's outward expression and appearance. The interactive installation consisted of a mannequin, a rack of clothes, and simple instructions on what to do. Users were told to make the mannequins beautiful, handsome, or amazing. Many participants expressed that even though the act of dressing a mannequin was very simple, it still encouraged them to think about the connections between the items of clothing they were picking and how they thought about the words beautiful, handsome, or amazing. The installation appeared in a variety of public venues, both indoors and outside. It was easily accessible to the public, so even those who chose not to actually dress the mannequins still had the opportunity to observe and reflect on the piece. The digital component of Make Me consisted of a website that served 2 purposes. One was to collect all of the different iterations of the mannequins as they traveled from site to site. The other was to share true stories from people about how binary gender roles have affected or currently affect their lives. By giving participants a chance to connect the two, the digital component led them to think even more deeply about their personal perceptions. Ultimately, Make Me tackled a specific part of a large problem, the influence of gender roles in our lives, to raise awareness in a way that was accessible and enjoyable for all.
So the Make Me project was part of the first semester in our program. And the students now are in the second semester and they're beginning to work on lab projects. So we're going to talk to our students now and they're going to tell us a little bit about what they're doing. First up is Bree Eikenberry. You want to tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on with Circle of Blue?
Yeah, so I'm a part of a 4-person project team partnering with Circle of Blue. Circle of Blue is a leading media outlet in Traverse City, Michigan that reports on the world's water and resource crisis. We're partnering with Circle of Blue to create a transmedia experience that reaches a younger audience. And through research already, my project team has discovered that most young people do not feel connected to their water source. We are now exploring how we might educate younger generations on the value of water and inform them on the importance of this precious resource through digital and physical spaces, community events, and collaborative competitions.
Thank you. Sean, actually, you worked on the Make Me project.
Yeah.
And now you're also working on which project in our lab?
The Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
So you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the symphony?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're trying to increase attendance to their classical series concerts, particularly for people 19 to 44. They have a lot of really popular events like Symphony on the Prairie, Yuletide, but the classical series is kind of lagging behind. So it's our goal to make a digital and physical experience that can engage both out into the community in order to bring people back to the Hilbert Circle Theater to increase those ticket sales and increase engagement with the ISO in general.
And last up is Sarah Jansen, and you're working with the Indiana Writers Center. You want to tell us a little bit about what that project is?
Right, so like some of the other students, our project partner, the Indiana Writers Center, is also trying to attract a younger and more diverse audience. So we're working on a plan to create an experience for them that includes live literary events as well as digital components that really emphasizes the importance of storytelling and writing and serves as a community for people to come together and collaborate over writing.
One of the things that I think that maybe it's hard to explain this program to people that haven't gone through it, right? It's so hands-on. What do you think some of the things that have been hardest for you to learn that you're finding now that you're out in the real world and building projects that have been helpful for you? Like going through that lab experience and building things instead of sitting and reading books about stuff.
Yeah. I think the iterating over designs and prototyping has helped us so much. Going through that process lets you remove some of the bad ideas and enhance some of the stronger aspects of it. And so starting small and building up, I think is a lot different than what a lot of workflows are. And it's made a big change.
Yeah. Has it been hard?
Yes.
Learning that process? Why has it been hard?
If you're someone like me, I always hate to fail and redo my work that I've started doing. So it's kind of helped me be a little bit more comfortable with giving up something and making something better through prototyping in that iteration.
How's it been working in interdisciplinary teams? Because this is another hallmark of what we do here, is you're working with people from vastly different backgrounds than you come from.
Yeah, I think as part of that creation process, that's really important to have a lot of various perspectives coming in that makes your project even that much better when you have people from different backgrounds contributing.
So I think that one of the things that we want to do right now is make sure that we take questions from everybody. So you guys can continue to share questions while we answer these. And if we run out of time, you'll be able to email either Jen or I, and we will get back to you. So we'll take our first question, which are, what are some of the different interdisciplinary backgrounds you have had join the program?
So we have a wide range of students in our first cohort. We have creative writing majors, graphic design majors, journalism, computer science, history, theater. What's really cool about that, the interdisciplinary nature of the program, is that each person brings a skill set, brings an undergraduate degree, a background, and even some professional experience in those various areas. So for example, when we're working with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra on a project, we have people who have video storytelling experience, writing experience, graphic design experience. strategic communication experience. So when you bring that kind of an interdisciplinary group together, it really makes for a very strong project. It gives us a lot of opportunity to push the boundaries of what we can do because there's so much skill represented in the different teams.
How difficult was it, because it's interdisciplinary, for you to find your way into how you could contribute to our projects?
It's definitely not clear at the beginning, I think, individually how you'll be able to contribute, but when you are learning new skill sets, you see how the skills that you bring to the table can enhance a project, and I think just by doing the projects, we've really kind of each come into our own niche and found where we fit into the program.
Yeah, and for me personally, like I have a lot of okay skill in a lot of different categories, and so it was really good to be able to get to a team where I can contribute a little bit to each aspect and also be backed up by people who are better than me at those things to really enhance it.
I was going to also ask, do you feel like you learn from each other in that process as well? Can you talk a little bit about that sort of how the interdisciplinary sort of setup helps you learn from others and expand your own knowledge?
I think for me personally, it helps talk with other people about what my specific area is and also helps me with what their specific area is. So we kind of just overall learn from everyone and we're learning new things every day. So
We share a lot of
Yeah,
information
we do.
with each other.
That's
We're
day one
sharing.
we tell you, like
Yeah.
share everything. We have another question.
This person asks, could you talk a little more about the writing sample that must be provided at the application process?
So we have two. There's a statement of purpose, and the statement of purpose, we want you to take a look at the program and look at the classes and look at some of the videos and projects people are doing and tell us what it is about the program that attracts you, what it is that you think will be where you can contribute. The second part is the 2,500 to 5,000 word professional writing sample. And that we're trying to get a sense of how well you write. In our program, we do both creative projects and actual research, academic research. So you'll have to navigate between those two things. So if you're a professional and have been out of school for a while, you may send us something that you do professionally so that we can see how well you write. If you're a student, we had a student today ask us if they could send their honors thesis, which is fine. It is essentially you showing us how well you write. So those are the two big pieces of writing that
Yeah,
we're looking
I would
for.
also add to that, we've been asked by students before, well, what if I don't have anything that's 2,500 words? Would you accept two 1,200 word pieces or three 1,000 word pieces? Absolutely, that's fine. We're really just, as Brad said, looking for sort of an overall sense of your writing skill. So one piece, two pieces, three pieces, all of that is fine for what we're looking for.
We have another question. Are we allowed to choose what project we join, or are we grouped based on our educational background?
That's an interesting question. So it's a little bit hard to answer that question right now because it depends on what projects are going on in the lab at the time. It depends on the needs of each project. But I will say this, and maybe the students can speak to this as well. We typically allow students to gravitate toward the projects they're most interested in. You may work on more than one project if you have a skill set that's needed in a couple of different areas. We often have students start on one project and sort of end up in another project. But it's a little bit of both. You choosing what you're most interested in and then us helping steer you toward the project that both needs your help the most and the one we think you'll benefit from. I will say I think we try our best to have as much autonomy as possible in that process and allow students to, again, choose what they're interested in working on. You guys can maybe speak to that as well in terms of the projects that you've been working on. Have you felt forced into any one project or
No,
yeah?
I haven't. I've been able to kind of have the freedom and, have the ability to go to what I want to do that, appeals to my interests. So I've never felt like I've been, shoved off into a team I didn't want to be in or on a project I didn't like. Like I've, had that choice throughout.
And I will say that there's really two ways also to think about it. We have the projects that we work on with our partners, but then you will also complete your own creative or thesis project to culminate the program. And so you have more autonomy over the project that you do at the end. Some people choose to integrate that into what they're doing with the partners. And other folks work on our partner stuff, but also work on their own things outside of that. So even if you get on a project in our lab that maybe isn't your first choice, you still have the option to do your own culminating project. So you should be able to pursue the thing that you want to pursue, because ultimately, which leads into our next question, we want you to be able to go get a job in the area that you want to work in.
So speaking of jobs, we have a question. What are some of the potential career paths someone could use with the EMDD degree?
So I get this answer, which is the jerk answer, which is it depends on what you come in with. So because we're an interdisciplinary program, like we said, we had 11 different disciplines that are in the first cohort for EMDD. So each of them are developing skills around building projects, but they're based on the skills that they came in with. So if you come in with a design background, you're probably going to go out and work somewhere in the design field. But what you're going to have the ability to do is manage and run projects where you're building things outside of whatever it is your particular interest was. So now you'll be able to think about transmedia storytelling. How do I move something from the page to live events? How will I be able to work with people who come from vastly different backgrounds than I do? And there's not a career that exists today. There's not a sector that exists where things like soft skills, problem solving, interdisciplinary communication isn't at the top of what people are looking for. So it's difficult to say, yes, you will go out and get this job, but based on the skills that you have, if you go and begin to look around, you'll see most of the jobs that are coming today ask for those kinds of soft skills.
Yeah, you know, EMDD is a lot about design thinking, which is a whole process of critical thinking and creative problem solving that can be applied to a wide range of sort of project-based, interdisciplinary type challenges. It's about transmedia storytelling, which is moving a story across platforms, whether that be different digital platforms or actually physical spaces and live events as well. And it's about human-computer interaction and understanding what happens during user experiences, whether that be in the digital space or in the physical space. So you can imagine that an EMDD degree is actually pretty relevant in a wide range of fields, from healthcare to education to strategic communication, journalism, all of those sort of media-driven fields.
And let me ask the students, when everybody comes into the program, they have the same question, which is how am I going to get a job? Do you feel now that you're in the second semester that you can see how these skills are going to be applicable? Because you come from design, you come from sort of a variety of places, and you were in newspapers. So but you are moving out of that into more general writing. Do you see how these skills will help you find your way out into the world?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's given me a vocabulary for how to get things done that I didn't know before, and a pattern of how to see a project through that I had no idea existed before this. So it's really helped to let me articulate what I want to do and how it needs to be done.
I think whatever feelings or thoughts I had coming into the program and thinking what I would do afterward, there are even more options open to me after seeing the skills that I'm acquiring through the program. It's even more open now than it was when I started, the options that I have for what I
And the
can
Producers Guild people haven't even come out here yet to talk about the entertainment stuff. So part of what we do in our seminar is bring experts in from a variety of fields to talk about the ways in which the skills that we're teaching are used in their field. So every Thursday when we have new speakers coming in, I get emails from students going, I had no idea this was even a thing. I had no idea this was even a thing. So I think some of that job stuff begins to come out once you really wrap your head around what this is.
To continue the jobs talk, we have a question about graduate assistantships. So what kinds of GA positions do some of our panelists have? So can you talk, Bree, about your GA-ship and Sarah as well?
I'm a graduate assistant for the University Division of Strategic Communications. There I work primarily on some of the web graphics. I work with the designers on the team, the interactive marketing people, so yeah.
And I have an administrative position with the graduate school. I'm the social media and content manager as part of the recruiting team. And I think a lot of people have the idea that when you have a graduate assistantship, you're automatically a teacher. But I think all of our positions are administrative positions. And at Ball State, there's 3 options. You can be a teacher, you can have a research position, or you can have an administrative position, which is like office work a little bit more. So.
And then we have, so many of our GAs are outside of the department because the skill sets that our students come in with are so in need in different places. EMDD has 2 specific, so you would be working with Jen or I and the professors and Faith, who's our project manager. But most of our GAs are in administrative positions around the university. So we have another question. Can you take summer classes, and how does the part-time, full-time class schedule differ?
So we have 2 ways through our program. One is the full-time option and one is a part-time option. The full-time option has students taking 3 classes in the fall and 3 classes in the spring, nothing in the summer. However, if you are a professional who works full-time or you just want to take a lighter course load throughout the program, you can take classes across 3 semesters. So instead of taking 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring, you would take 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, 2 in the summer. So at the end of that first year, all of our students, whether they're part-time or full-time, will have taken the full 18 credit hours of the year 1 experience, but the path through the program can be a little bit different. And then we repeat that in year 2. Remember, I mentioned earlier, our year 2 experience is all lab-based. So rather than taking traditional sitting in a classroom, listening to people lecture type classes, that second year is 18 credit hours working in the Creative Projects Development Lab and the Applied Research Lab. So for our part-time students, it would be the same sort of mix where they would take 6 credit hours in the fall, 6 in the spring, and 6 in the summer in year 2.
Do we have another question? Here we go. What are some examples of possible year 2 community partnership options?
So as I said before, right now we're working with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. We're also working with Garfield, Pause Inc., Jim Davis, the whole team over at Pause Inc. We actually have 2 projects going on with Pause right now. One is looking at developing multimedia teaching and learning modules, I should say, for teaching digital literacy in grades K through 5. So we're just kind of looking at what digital literacy means in the educational environment. We're also looking at the future of comics. Now that comics are moving from the print to the digital environment, what happens to a character like Garfield? What happens to the Garfield story as it moves across platforms, again, in the digital space? So that might be social media, that might be other digital, sort of mechanisms and platforms. Some of our other partners include the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, which is the largest children's museum in the world. Circle of Blue, which is Bree talked about. Circle of Blue is a nonprofit journalism group covering the water and energy crisis in the U.S. and China.
And don't want to talk about the people that we're out speaking with right now because we're not sure who the partners are going to be. But essentially, we're looking at both nonprofits, museums, places like that, but also we're beginning to, Jim Davis, Garfield is a for-profit company, so beginning to look at companies that are trying to solve big problems, whether it be entertainment, what does a sort of comic strip look like in a post-newspaper world, to any level of things. We also encourage our students to begin to look at the kinds of partners once they get here that they might be interested in working with. So not only do we have the lab partner and the lab projects that we're working on, but if you go out on your own to do your own creative project or your own thesis, you may go find the kind of company or organization that you want to work with and do a project in that way as well.
I think what's interesting about our project partners as well is that the list is constantly growing. So Brad and I, part of our job is to cultivate those relationships and go out looking for community partners that are doing interesting things that we feel the mission of EMDD sort of matches and marries with, and then figure out ways to partner with them. So I'm sure the list will continue to grow here over the next few months and years. Someone has asked, am I required to complete an internship? There is no internship requirement for the program. However, A, we certainly encourage it. Internships are great opportunities to learn, get professional experience and learn things on the job. Also ways to practice the skills you're learning in the EMDD program in a real world environment. The other thing I'd say about internships is we actually have project partners who have talked to us about the potential of bringing our students into their organizations in a summer internship capacity. So I imagine those kinds of opportunities will also continue to grow.
We also do informal partnerships and informal learning experiences. So it's possible that if you don't like Sean Stewart, who came and spoke to one of our classes, a transmedia designer, ask our students to do usability testing and give some basic feedback as he's developing a new project. So as opposed to going and working somewhere, we're trying to integrate what the students are doing with professionals as they're doing things. So at least you get experience in handling things. And I know, Sean, I think you're working on that. You were very excited about that and sent me email after email saying, why am I not in the thing yet? And part of that is to have that experience, right? Is to get to know folks like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the opportunities are just to get to interact with these people at all, even if it's not through an internship. Like it's good just to be put in contact and kind of build that network of people to know you can talk to, or just know that they're there and they're doing the same kind of work that you want to do.
And it's different than the undergraduate internship in that Sean and these folks don't look at the graduate students as work. Like, they're asking you to do actual things that are going to help them in their process, not just come in and sit in my office. So we actually sort of like that, I think, process. So we have a question for Bree. From a graphic designer standpoint, for someone wanting to work in an agency, do you feel that this program is beneficial?
I definitely think for sure. I think what's important about it is when I came into the program, I wasn't really sure what design thinking was. And when I learned the process of it, I think that really has helped me in not only designing for print and web, but also thinking about live experiences and taking my graphic design to a whole new level where I can think of exhibit design or live performances, transmedia storytelling. So it's broadened my horizon.
I think it's really important as a not designer, but somebody that makes those experiences, what moves people through those things is an ability to have signposts that are the same across different things. And I think you all experienced that in the 640 class, right? And so I think that is something that I don't know if it can be, Jen is a designer, I don't know if that can be taught in a design class, because it is really kind of specific to this transmedia experience.
Yeah, so I, prior to joining Brad in the EMDD program, I ran our journalism graphics sequence for 14 years. So I have a journalism graphics background. I was a visual journalist for many years before teaching. And I can say with great certainty that our program is incredibly beneficial to graphic designers, visual storytellers of any kind. Because I think what it does is, as Brad said, it really does help you think about design in the context of a cross-platform experience. It helps you from a design perspective think about what happens to the visual components of a storyline as it travels across platforms, whether that be a simple information graphic or whether that be an entire visual campaign for a major cross-platform, multi-dimensional story.
And if we even just think about evocative spaces, when you're building live experiences, you need to explain to people what they need to do without having somebody there explaining it. And there's no other way to do that other than design, and whether it be the graphic stuff or the design of the experience in space. And I think that is increasingly, particularly in the media landscape, a thing that you need to be able to think about.
I think another thing that's important too is the focus on human-computer interaction and user experience design. So in my undergrad, I sort of had a little bit of idea of what those things were, but this whole year has just been really honed in on HCI and user experience design and testing.
And in 2016, designers cannot go out into any kind of job market without understanding user experience. Print designers, people who design strictly for print, are kind of few and far between these days. Even people who go into the field or went into the field as print designers are finding themselves in an interaction design space. And you could get a whole PhD in human-computer interaction, which I've done. There's a huge, vast amount of information out there, as well as processes and strategies to understand the user experience. So we teach our designers and the rest of our EMDD cohort what those processes are and what those research methods are. It's very applied research. It's not academic research. It's very, sort of understanding users. And I think that's what makes it really fun for graphic designers.
Mm-hmm.
And for a writer, the other thing, right? Like you come in as a writer and you kind of wonder where you're going to fit in and is this going to help you, because we sit in a room and with nobody around. Have you, as you've gone through this, has this changed the way you think about writing? Because you've done both newspaper stuff but also the Second City stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely broadened my horizons in what I see my writing skills being applied to in so many different areas. Like, you need me to be able to do your job. So my skills definitely translate to many different areas.
And I think it takes this first semester to understand that,
Yeah.
because
definitely.
It does.
we throw you off the side of the boat and let you swim around and sort of tell you at some point there'll be a life raft, but you don't get it until you get it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to trust that those skills will suddenly, you'll go, oh, as a writer, you can't do this, and I can't build this space until we've written this and designed this, and now we can make this thing happen. We have another question. What kind of financial assistance is available for graduate students?
So as I mentioned, if you get a graduate assistantship, you receive a tuition waiver, a partial tuition waiver that is, but it covers the bulk of your tuition, as well as a stipend. So graduate assistantships are helpful. There are also some scholarships within the Department of Journalism that students are eligible to apply for.
We have another question. Can you give examples of graduate theses and creative project topics for EMDD students? I feel like we have some people that might be able to help us with that one.
So our students are in the process right now of actually pitching their thesis and creative project ideas to Brad and I. And we are in the process of helping them sort of think through those ideas. If they're working on thesis projects, we're helping them think through what their research question is and then what the proper methodology is for sort of tackling that research question. If they're focused on creative projects, we're helping them sort of fully outline and flesh out that creative project idea to make sure that it sort of covers all of the bases and lives in that transmedia space in a way that's going to be innovative and exciting. But let's let our students tell us, what are you guys working on?
Well, I haven't made my research question yet, but my focus is on social marketing and looking at it through strategic communications and graphic design. So I want to build a social marketing campaign and test my ways of doing that and report that in my thesis. So
are you looking for sort of a best practices?
Yeah, the
kind of
best
approach?
practice frameworks, how exactly people will move from knowing that something's happening to actually participating or taking action in it.
Are you building that in context of the project that you're working on, or
So
outside of that?
I would like to build it with my partnership Circle of Blue, but I've had other ideas with other partners and maybe even having my own partner through the community, but at this point in time, I don't really know if Circle of Blue will need that. That's something my team hasn't decided yet, but if they do, then I might test that campaign that we already are building and just do a thesis. So it just depends.
Yeah, I'm doing mine on how narrative and mechanics interact in video games, and so doing it in a way that is both applicable to looking at how video games are made, but then also how to take that kind of interaction and possibly apply it to real-world experiences, things like that. So just looking at how to balance that and how to execute that correctly.
And it's a thesis?
Yes, it's a thesis.
So, and this is built around the idea that there's an argument whether
Yes.
a game mechanic makes somebody do something or whether story makes somebody do something. And it's in the game world, it's largely an academic argument, right?
Yes.
But the way it fits into EMDD, because Sean and I had this discussion, I was like, we don't teach video games here. We don't teach games. But looking at it from how do I get people to engage, learn, and move, and I'm using video games as a
Right.
framework to understand that.
Right.
And so this, I think, is a good example of Sean's interest is in video games, right? That's what he wants to do. It's not what we do here, but the ideas are things that we use here. So we've worked, and I think we've got a pretty good sense of what that's going to look like.
I hope, yeah. I think so at this point. Yeah.
I feel like we do.
I do.
How about you, Sarah?
So I am going to actually make a creative project, a transmedia storytelling project, with kind of a focus on live events and how that can raise awareness of social issues.
Are you doing this with a partner, or you figure that out yet?
I think right now I am going to try to do this with Circle of Blue and around some of the water issues that are facing Flint, Michigan residents. So I really want to create an experience that helps people empathize with the residents of Flint and what it's like to have to face those challenges around water.
And this is a nonfiction? Haven't decided that yet.
Haven't really worked that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a live event with some kinds of digital components that
Right.
that could be replicatable in other kinds of. Essentially, it's about building empathy.
Yeah.
Right. The show is about building empathy. It's just focused through Flint this time.
Right.
Okay, we have another question. Is there a dress code for the program?
There was
Take a
tonight.
wide shot. I think the answer to that is not in class. But when you're out working with partners, one of the things that I tell all the students is that you're always under evaluation in the graduate project. And if we're working with Jim Davis and or working with the Indianapolis Symphony, we're going to expect you to go out and look professional because you're interacting with professional partners. And I think that you want to do that because hopefully you want those folks to either hire you or recommend you to their friends. So there's not one in class. There's not even one when you go out to the partners. But we're evaluating where we put you out there based on the ways in which you interact with us.
The next question, what kinds of technology is available for students to use? Do you expect students to come in with their own tech equipment? So this is a great question. We are so fortunate at Ball State in the Department of Journalism to have cutting edge, awesome equipment and labs. 2 giant rooms were renovated last year to be the home for our new Center for Emerging Media Design and Development. In those labs, we have Macintosh computers, we have the entire Adobe suite, we have video editing software, audio editing software, really anything our students would need to, do digital projects. We also have a whole host of tablets that students can check out. We have cameras that students can check out. Brad and I have done a pretty good job, I think, at this point of trying to cover all the bases where technology is concerned. Now, that's not to say that along the way we might not come up with a technology that we don't have that we need, but we'll be pretty committed to helping students figure out how to get their hands on what they need. Also, in the larger scope of the university, there's a lot of opportunities across campus for students to check out technology as needed. So there are definitely a lot of resources. Now, it's great if you can come with some technology, if you have your own laptop and you have some software. That will make life a little easier on you, certainly, because you can probably do more working remotely or working from home. But certainly, we can also provide you with whatever technology you need.
And we have things like the Digital Publishing Studio, so you don't even have to understand and know how everything works. There are also humans that are there helping you design and make things. We have a podcast room, we have a lighting kit. So there are, I think, not only things, the technologies that we put together, but also help for doing the kinds of projects. Because again, when we're working with partners, we are doing professional level work. We're not doing bare bones stuff. And so we've tried to design our labs and the experience so that you have the access to those types of technologies. We have another question. What learning opportunities are available outside of the classroom?
So we're pretty excited actually about something we call informal learning nights. We do this on a semi-regular basis, weekly, sometimes every couple of weeks. Our informal learning nights are sort of a wide range of opportunities. One might be students teaching others in the program a skill set that they have. So Sean, you did a video editing workshop. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I just went over the basics of working in Adobe Premiere and I think a little bit of After Effects, just to kind of show the bare minimum you would need to be able to get footage in, how to edit it, how to do just a little bit just to make it, to increase the production value with the minimum of effort. So that was...
So Sean's example is one where we actually make formal learning opportunities to teach each other what we know. And it could be something, I think we had a swing dancing workshop one night. It could be something fun like that, or it could be something more practical like what Sean taught. We also, as Brad talked about, have a seminar class where we bring in speakers from all over the country doing really interesting things. Brad, do you want to talk a little bit about some of those speakers?
Yeah, it's the best class ever. I love the class. In fact, one of the things that we just did was went down to the escape room in Indianapolis, which is a live evocative space where there are problems and puzzles that you need to solve in teams. And the students have been learning about how you build these spaces, and I thought, what a wonderful way to figure out how well they know that than to unleash them in that. To varying degrees of failure happened, which was wonderful to watch. We also have people from the Producers Guild of America coming in to talk. Like I said, every Thursday we have seminar speakers, but not everybody can make it on a Thursday, so we will have those speakers in other places as well. We also have we did it once in the first semester. I think we're going to try to do it once a year. We may do it once a semester. We rented a cabin down in Bradford Woods, and the students that could go down, we paid for it. Everybody went down, and some of them were blowing off steam because it was the end of the first semester. There was some work. There was a chapstick making informal learning. I was in bed for that because it happened late at night. But that was really both as part of to build the cohort and to just get people out of the university and together and thinking of themselves as a community of learners and not just students, but also giving them the opportunity to have 2.5 days where there was a fire and food and they could just work on the things that they needed to work on. So there's a variety of events and things that we do outside of here, and we have them all on a calendar at centerforemdd.com. If you go into the About section, you'll see a calendar that lists all the informal events and speakers and things that we do.
So the next question, what kind of conference opportunities are there for students to present EMDD research?
We have some things that we actually can't talk about that are very exciting right now, but one of the things that we do is encourage all of our students from the first time they step foot here is to begin thinking about the work that they do in local and regional conferences in that first year as they're beginning to sift through how they fit into this world of emerging media. I think most of that's going to happen in the second semester once they get their theses and creative projects together. We've been talking about places like where I go, South by Southwest Interactive, or the Pop Culture Association, where they have both regional and national level conferences. And Jen's work, which you can talk a little bit about, comes in CHI and some of the human-computer interaction, the hard science conferences.
So what's also interesting to note about this question is that, again, the interdisciplinary nature of EMDD is such that there's actually a wide range of conferences. It would take us all night to list them all, because some conferences are very specific to human-computer interaction. As Brad mentioned, CHI is a huge conference every year that is very focused on HCI, but because human-computer interaction is sort of an umbrella term for lots of different fields, you'd see a lot of diversity at a conference like CHI. But then there's also conferences in journalism, or conferences in graphic design, or conferences in history, or theater, or performance, where our work is very applicable because, again, all of these fields are really grappling with these questions of how stories emerge and transform in the digital space.
There's actually a wonderful museum conference that happens in Eastern Illinois where we've presented some of the work that we've done because so many of the partners that we work with are in that museum library space. We are out of time. We don't have time for any more questions. If you still want to ask us something, you can email either Jen or I, and our email is up on the screen. We will get back to you. We'll set up a time to give you a call. I'd like to thank our students for coming in, Bree, Sean, and Sarah. We have them working on lots of stuff right now, so thank you guys. And thank you all out there for watching, and if you have any questions, we look forward to hearing from you. Otherwise, we hope to see you next year in the program.
Thanks for joining us.